Hello. Good evening. Good evening. LinkedIn. Good evening. Good evening. Facebook. Good evening. Instagram. How are you guys doing? See a couple of you. I know one for sure who's on Facebook is my number one fan. Hi, how are you? Listen, we're talking about capitalism today, phenomenal financial freedom. Um, I want to know if you guys like capitalism, if you're a believer in capitalism. I don't know how to feel, but I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of capitalism. I don't know about you if you're tired of seeing inflation. I mean, it's crazy. The cost of food, the cost of gas has skyrocketed. But I was thinking about things that are monopolized, like in my community, I feel like Spectrum is the only internet available for us, and so they can charge any types of rates. That kind of stuff really bugs me. Um, but let's talk about capitalism. Don't forget, I think capitalism is good too. You know, you can create businesses. Um, I don't know. We'll see. But my book, Phenomenal STEMist, is up, and of course, you can educate your child on phenomenal STEMist, phenomenal STEM camps. Yep. STEM prep, STEM year. Just download the questionnaire and tell me what you're interested in. All right, y'all. Pros and cons of capitalism. Number one, the pros of capitalism are economic freedom. Economic freedom will help political freedom. When you're not a capitalistic society, you're usually a society in which the government controls everything, and that can be an issue for political freedom, especially if it's not your political party that is in. I love when Warren Buffett says, "I make money when Democrats are in office. I make money when Republicans are in office." The stock market is no respecter of person. Number two, efficiency. Efficiency. Talking about the pros of capitalism. Efficiency. Basically, capitalism, because of competition, people try to be the best. If you're just limited to one type of thing, people are basically lackadaisical. If you look at private versus government institutions, many private institutions thrive on competition. Many government institutions lead based on the status quo, and when you don't try to innovate, you lead. It leads to status quo. So things aren't as sufficient. Um, so they say state-owned, government-owned institutions are more inefficient. Um, they hire people, they less likely to fire them, less able to fire them, and therefore there's few incentive for innovation, which leads to efficiency. While competition, of course, requires efficiency and innovation. So that's the next pro of capitalism. Capitalism provides innovation. Now you look at capitalistic communities compared to other communities that aren't as capitalistic. Well, there's more to say about that, but like I'm not gonna lie, I love America, and my grandparents came to America like for a reason. They left their country of origin to come here. There's a lot of opportunity here. Besides the fact that it's a vast country with multiple little countries called states. Like there's but so much that you can do, you know, in smaller countries, smaller governments. So You can't deny America's capitalistic innovation. Can't deny it. Can't deny it. So, innovation, I mean, look at technology. Ugh, the technology that was fostered here in this environment. All right, next one, number 4, economic growth. Capitalism causes economic growth. People get rich. And I know, what's up, Dale? What's up, Roosevelt? I know, I know pros aren't always evaluated in dollars and cents. However, like when you have multiple firms competing with each other, creating innovative products that you can make and sell and create a higher standard of living, you know, look at where you're from, mommy, and look at what hey Bernadette, you know, how many people would crave to come to this capitalistic society? A lot of us who live here talk from a place of privilege. We're like, down with capitalism and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And all you've known is this country. Like, you've never been to a country that doesn't have what you have. The ease of biotechnology, the ease of engineering technology in this country. I mean, look, I'm using YouTube to talk to the whole world. You know, there's other countries that just I I couldn't do this. I'm a woman that owns my own home and buys stocks in the stock market without the help of any man. There are countries all over this world that this is unheard of. Unheard of. Why? Because of innovation and expansion that creates higher standards of living. You can't deny what America has done for this world. Can't deny it. And I refuse to because my grandmothers, both of them, migrated here. And they brought their children here. Especially like, you know, especially you know, my ancestors who are from the country, you know, who would be limited based on governmental decisions of caste. You know, in countries where caste is the governmental decisions of caste is like, if you're born into this family, you are meant to be working in the fields, and if you're born into this family, meant to be working in the offices, and that's just the way it is. Well, no, you could leave a caste system in Jamaica as someone who's not allowed to get education, and come to America and go to a community college, get a GED, go to community college, then get a bachelor's degree, get a master's degree, and you and your children have PhDs. While in if you had a child in Jamaica, your child would be subject to caste. Tell me that ain't true. Somebody tell me that ain't true. So capitalism is like, it has its place. It has its pros. According to Churchill, Winston Churchill, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. Like, there are no better alternative. That could be applied to capitalism. What's better than capitalism? Yes, capitalism has its cons. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the cons of capitalism. The cons of capitalism. What do you think the cons of capitalism? Everybody talks bad about capitalism while they're driving their cheap car that would cost millions over someplace else. You know, you complain about gas prices. Gas prices have been expensive in multiple other places. Cons of capitalism. There are cons now. I ain't 100% pro capitalism. Number one, the first con. I'm reading an article from economicshelp.org. We're talking about the pros and cons of capitalism. You can find this article and a YouTube video on my Phenomenal Financial Freedom book, Phenomenal Financial Freedom group on Facebook. Feel free to join it. Monopoly power. Monopoly power. I told you, Spectrum. Down with Spectrum. Down with Spectrum. Like, there's no like competition. I can't choose somebody else. So Spectrum can keep upping their costs of internet. And like I can't say, I'm going to someplace else. And they don't necessarily have to be great. They don't have to be innovative. Why? Because they forced the monopoly around my neighborhood. They can exploit. They can exploit. According to my mother, capitalists move in and destroy, then take over. Is that what you're saying happened? Is that well, why didn't the other form of economic government not allow them to come in? How come they had the power to come in like that? Monopsony power. That's when you can pay low wages. There's some institutions that pay their executive, these hospitals, these health institutions pay their executives absorbent amount of money. Meanwhile, they exploit their lower level health, the ones, and usually the backbones, the nurses, the and well, nurses y'all making money now though. Shout out to all them, but travel nurses are. What about the nurses who work at the institution? I heard they are so upset about how you have travel nurses who are inexperienced coming in and making tens of thousands more than experienced nurses who weren't travel nurses. Who made those kind of decisions? Monopsony power. What? Monopsony power. So it's monopoly power and there's monopsony power. And monopsony power is where institutions that thrive in capitalism will pay low wages to workers, create inequality. Exploitation comes with capitalism. Exploitation comes with capitalism. Money talks, everybody walk. That's right. Cons of capitalism we're talking about. The social benefit is ignored. So anything for the power of money and everybody else don't matter. So for the public good gets ignored. Everything is about maximizing profits for the shareholder. Now, if you're a shareholder, you gonna get profit. I guess my thing is become a shareholder. Everybody, a lot of us are mad about um, these institutions. Become a shareholder. That's that. I guess you don't want to be a part of it, so I respect that. But then, like, why are we living here? I mean, living here. If you live here, you are a beneficiary of capitalism. You just either a low beneficiary or a higher beneficiary. But there's people all over the world that crave to be here because while it's bad, there's a lot worse out there. So the problem is health, education, public transport. These are the good things for people, and that these things often get ignored for the power of money. Social benefit ignored. Cons of capitalism. Inherited wealth and wealth inequality. Capitalism was all about, the most innovative succeed, the hardest worker succeed. That's not true. It's the wealthy. that pass on their money down to their children, right? And the more it happens, the more the inequality happens. So this country was based off of slavery, right? This country was based off of free labor, and the children and the children's children have benefited from the free labor of our ancestors. Even if you were poor and built yourself up, there's a privilege that comes with being Caucasian in this country. You know, you're more likely, it's easier for a Caucasian person who lives in the trailers, right? Who's just in poverty as some African Americans who live in the ghettos. You clean yourself up, you dye your hair well, you put that makeup on, and you don't look like you're from that area. No, there's no amount of bleach that can bleach our skin to make us have our features of a Caucasian. We just don't get that same privilege. So there are privileges in this country. At the same time, it doesn't represent hard work. There are a lot of rich kids who don't work at all, and they get their wealth passed to them. So it's not survival of the fittest. It's not survival of the fittest. All right. That inequality leads to a social divide. And a lot of the times the government merges with the capitalism and creates social divisions. Things like redlining, right? Where you literally redline an area for just a certain group of people and you literally lower their property values. They're not allowed to be a part of this capitalistic system. That's my beef with American capitalism. Listen, I don't have a problem living in it. Just make it equal. Like let me be a part of it. Let me be a part of the survival of the fittest. But they won't do that because they use governmental laws where they were able to give whites loan ability to get houses in post World War II. Meanwhile, Jim Crow was heavy post World War II. So one group of people were getting economic power. The other ones, same fighters, same people going to war. One given economic power, one redlined and Jim Crowed. Yeah, that wasn't based on survival of the fittest. That was choosing social division. Lastly, no, two more. Um, capitalistic a capitalistic society diminishes the utility of wealth. What does that mean? A millionaire gets $1 million, um, sees little increase to economic welfare. Like if they get $1 million, that's nothing because they're billionaires. But if I was to get $1 million, I could do so much more. So the money is not even doing a good to the wealthy. There's so much more that could be done to somebody who really needs the money as compared to someone who doesn't need the money, but they're hoarding the money. They're hoarding their money. That's the problem. Like the wealth is not helping society as much as that it could. Lastly, the problem with capitalism is that there's booms and busts. What does that mean? That means that basically you grow, 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 and then it crashes. You grow, 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 and it crashes. The people who get the effect of the grow, 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 and crashing, like the people who are affected most are the poor. Rich people, like when the stock market is bubbling up and it crashes, rich people get excited. They buy stock during crashes. There's no risk with the wealthy. It's the poor people. When the crashes happened, who lost all their jobs? The people who had less education lost the jobs during the last crash, the Great Recession in 2008. Most people who lost their jobs were those who weren't educated. They didn't have a college degree. Most people who lost their houses were people who were first time home buyers, right? People who could afford to watch their house be underwater. It's not even underwater because they usually get it for cheap and they rent it out. So their houses is used as an asset. So when the stock market crashed and the housing market crashed, they just use that house as a rental property, or they just left the house there and they waited for the market to come back. People who don't have that kind of risk tolerance, usually people who don't have that much money, they lose their house in foreclosure. They lose their house in short sale because they had to use a loan to buy their house versus the rich bought that house for cash. You see? So the booms and the bust cycles only positively affect the wealthy. And that's the con of capitalism. The con of capitalism is that only the wealthy, it feels like only the wealthy are benefiting. But I wouldn't say that is the case 100%. There are people who are in poor countries all over the world. It is rare that women are allowed to get educated and have their own things. That's that's capitalistic societies do that. Um, so there's pros and cons. Those are my pros and my cons. Thanks so much for watching. To see you, Bernadette, Ma, Roosevelt. I don't know who else is there. I think I saw one more person. But it was great seeing you guys. Don't forget, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. Share my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So that would be awesome. See ya.